You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 62, Crash Bandicoot. We're taking a look at his series.
That's absolutely 100% true. And if you didn't know it, we're going to be also talking kind of a little bit about the evolution of the Crash Bandicoot music.
Yeah, a bit. We're not playing these in chronological order
True.
by any means, but there's a lot of sort of history here. I mean, we're going to be spanning from Crash 1 in, what was it, 1996, which is what we just came in on,
Yep.
all the way up to the newest, as of right now,
Yes.
Crash 4, It's About Time.
Correct, yeah, and we'll get into that name in just a little bit. So the track that we came in on was the infamous map theme and title screen music. It's by Mutato Musica, and that's comprised of Mark Mothersbaugh and Josh Mansell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I figure we'll also talk about our experiences with the Crash Bandicoot franchise, talk a little bit about that. The first game debuted only on the PlayStation initially.
Exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive. It was an exclusive game developed by Naughty Dog. It was a pretty unique game for its time. I remember going to Toys R Us and playing the demo.
Yep.
And I remember being pretty impressed with the demo. And I thought, you know what? I've been a Nintendo fanboy, but I could own a PlayStation. You know, I'm digging this. I'm feeling it.
Is that what started it? The little taste of Crash?
Well, actually the very first, and I think I talked about this on the PlayStation episode, but the very first game I ever got or played on the PlayStation, other than like in a demo aspect, like in a store, was Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Yeah, because I rented it. And the problem is I had to return my PlayStation 1 because I bought it used.
Like two or three different times.
3 different times, yeah, unfortunately, because I just kept getting clunkers.
Yeah.
But that was how it went back then.
Yeah, it was like back in the Wild West when there was no testing done. I mean, some places are not so reputable and probably still don't test, but for the most part, when you buy a used system now, you can be mostly assured that it's going to work.
I remember I thought it was the game, and I returned the game, and then I got the replacement game, and nope, same thing. So that's when I returned the PlayStation.
It really had to be a mind melter to like replace the game. It's not the game, replace the system, and it's still not working. You're like, maybe it's just me.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating because I was like, yo, I want to get my Crash on, man. I want to jam out to this awesome tunage.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the things I always remembered. I loved the bouncy, fun music of the Crash Bandicoot series, and you know, it definitely reminded me of upper tier, high tier, like mascot platform games like Mario, Sonic.
Yep.
It didn't feel like you know your Aero the Acrobats or your. I've just offended every Aero the Acrobat fan.
Both of them. But yeah, well, I'm trying to think.
So what was your experience with the first Crash Bandicoot game?
It's a good question. I think I had a similar experience to you, but I really didn't have a lot of interaction with the first Crash Bandicoot game until after also after Crash Bandicoot 3. So I probably played a little bit in like some store, whether it be a KB or a Caldor or a Bradley's or what else doesn't exist anymore.
Toys R Us. Rip. Did you forget that Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore, technically?
Yeah, well, I was really salty about the fact that they dissolved and they tried to come back after.
And everyone was like, nah, yo, just let it die.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I played it. I played a little bit of it in one of those stores, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But I didn't really get into it until I got Crash. I got Crash 3 probably for Christmas or something one year, and
so you already had a PlayStation at that point. Okay. So it wasn't really your first game for Crash 3 in terms of like Crash 3 was your first owned game.
Well, it was my first owned Crash game.
Right.
I enjoyed 3 so much I later went back to play 1, and I didn't really like it all that much.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about that a little bit more after we talk about the third game, because that we can talk about how we went back to replay these.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not the third game, the Insane Trilogy.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So this track, I was digging it. I mean, like one thing that I noticed right away about the track, which really stood out to me, was the xylophone.
Yes.
I mean, that xylophone is very prominent.
It is. This song, this map theme is... I'm pretty sure it's ubiquitous across all the games.
Yeah,
if it's not in one of the games, then that's probably not a game worth talking about anymore. No, like seriously though, it's in 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
I think it's in. So there was a 4th Crash game on PlayStation 2.
Yeah, which that's part of the thing that I was saying. We'll probably talk about. At that time when we get to that game. Yeah.
The Wrath of Cortex. That's the one. So it was in that game. It's in Crash 4. Obviously, it's in the Insane Trilogy.
It seems to be
basically the Crash theme.
Right. It's kind of like the ubiquitous like Super Mario Brothers, like exactly. Like the overworld, basically. Yeah. And that's cool. And that is such a good track to come in on. And it was actually Justin's suggestion, but like I was already gonna pick that. So good job jumping the gun on that, Justin.
It was just one of the things like, this makes the most sense. I'm going to put this down, and if you want to change it, we can talk about it.
Right. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense, like 100%.
Yeah.
Mutato Musica, we'll be talking about them quite a bit throughout this episode.
Yep.
So we'll talk about Mutato Musica, who is also known as Josh Mansell and Mark Mothersbaugh, after the next track, because you're going to be hearing their names quite often.
That's true.
Yeah. So speaking of which, may as well play our first track after this neat little intro.
Yeah, so my first pick of this Crash-themed episode is going to be from my favorite Crash game so far, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. This came out in the PS1 in 1998. The track is Pirates and Wave Runners, and it was by Mutato Musica. Hey, that was Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, the 1998 PS1 release. Pirates and Wave Runners was the name of that track, and it was by Mark Mothersbaugh and Josh Mansell of Mutato Musica.
That's right.
That's cool.
Dat bass. Could we talk about Dat funky bass?
We can.
In the middle of the track.
Those steel drums.
Right? Those steel drums and Dat
funky bass.
Funky bass.
Yes.
I was really, really enjoying the boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom. With the steel drums in the background, too. There was just like really nice, really just clean sounding. I really like the production on the Crash music. Like, the production-wise, it sounds really clean and really fresh, like refreshing. It's like like we should have done. Okay, they should have released the Crash 4 game because the whole reason why we did this episode is because of Crash 4 coming out.
Right.
It's about time.
It is.
Yeah. I didn't mean to.
In all respects.
Right.
It is.
Right. I didn't mean to line that up for you, but you bowled a strike, so go you. No, they should have done this in summertime. They should have released the game in summertime because this would have been such a good summer vibe track.
Agreed.
Meanwhile, the leaves are falling off the trees currently because we're recording this in late October. So,
yeah. I mean, especially with how the new game and the first game start on basically a tropical island, I completely agree. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's interesting that they were able to push these sequels out and advance them so much.
Yeah.
And keep working on them because I guess they had the bones of the game. They had the structure, then they just had to go in and make new levels and basically call it a sequel. But, they did so much more. They pushed the boundaries of the games, too, especially with this third game with all the water stuff that you had to do.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, it's even more impressive because each game had some pretty big things over the previous games.
Yeah.
Like the first game, you have this this map system where it kind of like Donkey Kong Country.
Right.
I know you've made that comparison before. And then in the second game is where they started doing the hub world, hub rooms. And then in the third game, you started having these weird, like almost. I don't think there was the motorcycle racing or the like the Great Wall riding the tiger type thing in the second game. And so the third game brought in those two things as well as, like you said, the wave race type stuff, and those were really, really interesting. So like that's the reason that I picked this track from 3 because I think I usually got the most frustrated at the wave,
the water levels.
Yeah, those levels. And it's funny because if you take it easy, they're not that bad. But I'm no speedrunner by any means. But I think there is a part of me inside that wants to be a speedrunner, and I always try to just like brute force my way through games, go as quickly as possible.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying because then I end up
missing
in stuff like this. Well, you miss stuff, or you end up like this, where if you just slow down and take it easy, it's not that bad a level, but I'm just trying like mashing the go button and
hey man, take it easy. Take it easy.
But I will say because every level you can go back and replay it and do a time trial to get extra stuff.
Right.
And that you have to do it at that point. Like you have to figure out how to get through the level as quickly as possible. So, I mean, I could just make the excuse that I was practicing.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, there's always been in the Crash games like that yearning to replay levels. I mean, with Donkey Kong Country, once you got the bonus stuff, like, because what I would do is I would play the game, I would play the level over and over and over to find all the bonus stuff. And then once you found the bonus stuff, you would kind of move on. But with Crash, with the time trial stuff, they focused on getting you to replay the game because you wanted to improve your score, your time score. So that was kind of a big focus for a lot of the games, especially in those early days. Plot-wise, the first game was pretty basic. It was, damsel in distress, Tawna is your girlfriend, and you're playing as Crash Bandicoot, who is a bandicoot.
Yep.
And you're going after Dr. Neo Cortex. And so the first game is pretty bare bones. There was a lot of, I guess, behind-the-scenes hubbub about Tawna because she was very amply chested.
Yep, very
voluptuous. And I guess there were somebody at either Universal or somebody that they brought in. I remember reading some developer interviews back in the day.
Yeah.
And the developers were saying like they almost didn't make the game, period. Yeah. Because they brought this woman in. It was some woman who they brought in, and she was just like not happy at all with the direction that they were going in. They wanted to go more family friendly, and the developers were like, "No, this is the game we want to make." And I think they won in the end, but like they had to considerably tone it down or something like that. The sexiness. And then after that, they were just like, well, we're done with this character. because of all the hubbub,
Yeah.
all the fighting that we had to do about it. So instead, we're going to make Coco. So they ended up getting what they wanted in the end. They got a more family-friendly character, which is cool. I mean, Coco's still a cool character.
Yeah, I kind of like Coco, especially in the new game. But.
Yeah. I mean, like the newer games, they tried to give the characters a lot more personality, and Crash has his wow and wow, kind of silly sound effects, and Dr. Cortex was always like the voice that you would hear in the games, but
yeah, well, him or Uka Uka.
Oh, right, the
evil mask.
Right. Which everybody calls Ooga Booga, because when you get him, he goes Ooga Booga.
Well, that's Aku Aku.
Right, Aku
Or is
Aku.
it the other way around? I can never keep them straight.
Anyways, Crash Bandicoot 3 is a really, really fun game and well worth playing. The whole series on PS1 is great. Like, that initial trilogy is just, like, unstoppable. It's really great gameplay, great soundtracks, and fun, bright colors and characters and time trial stuff. It's just good fun. Good platforming fun. So tell me about Mutato Musica.
So Mutato Musica is Mark Mothersbaugh and Josh Mansell.
Right.
Together, they
are Mutato Musica.
You took the words right out of my 7th grade English essay's mouth.
Well, Mark Mothersbaugh started off with Devo. Well, he did other stuff, but he was in Devo. He did the music for Rugrats after he I guess he was always in Devo, but he was like on the side doing like stuff that pays the bills, I guess. All the soundtracks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, are we not men? No, we are Devo.
Right, correct.
DEVO. But in the world of video games, he started with a 1992 game called Sewer Shark. He did the tunnel music in that game.
I got another name for that game. I can't say it though. Well, it's not me. It's Angry Video Game Nerd. But anyways.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I'm like, is it the same thing that he...
Yes.
From there, I mean, he's gone on to do so much. Aside from the Crash games, he did music for the Rugrats games as well, as the Rugrats theme. He's done the music for the Jak and Daxter games, Jak 1, 2, and 3. The Sims 2, he is all over the theme music for that. Aside from the most recent Crash stuff, like Crash Bandicoot, Insane Trilogy, and CTR Crash Team Racing, Nitro Fueled, Little Big Planet Karting, he did a track called Fresh in 2012. And then we've got Josh Mansell, who has a slightly more condensed resume. Started out with Crash Bandicoot in 1996, did 1, 2, Warped, Crash Team Racing, also worked on the Jak and Daxter games as Mutato Musica, so that's the thing. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale in 2012, and most recently, CTR Nitro Fueled in 2019.
Regarding Mutato Musica, they're a full-service music production company that Mark Mothersbaugh co-founded. So he has done, through Mutato Musica, a bunch of credits for a lot of like animated movies, stuff like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Worked a lot with, I can't remember the name of the director. I'm not a fan of him, but the Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, that sort of stuff. So yeah, he's been doing it quite a bit. Cool name.
The Mutato Musica?
Yeah.
I remember we've talked about them before because it's like it's a portmanteau of, I think, what is it? Tomato and Mutation?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think we talked about it on the racing games episode, the kart racing games episode.
Yes, because they were in there. Yep. Wes Anderson is the guy you hate, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Not a fan of his. Not a big fan of his movies. But anyways, let's move on to my first pick, which is from the Game Boy Advance game Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure. This came out in 2002 exclusively on the Game Boy Advance, and the track we're going to hear is Frostbite Cavern by Manfred Linsner and Todd Maston. Welcome back to our Crash Bandicoot retrospective on the music of Crash Bandicoot. That was Crash Bandicoot The Huge Adventure that came out in the Game Boy Advance in 2002, and that track was Frostbite Cavern by Manfred Linsner and Todd Maston. And I recognized that it was a Manfred Linsner track as soon as I heard those arpeggios, the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. That style and sound of his arpeggios is just so ingrained in my brain because I played a lot of the Tomb Raider handheld games on Game Boy Color, and he did those as well. So they just reek of Manfred Linsner in the best possible way. Yeah.
Nice.
What do you think of him?
I really like this one. I felt like it was a good adaptation of the Crash style music on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Like as soon as it started playing, I was like, "Oh wow!" Like there's that bass, and it sounds like it sounds like what we've been hearing in the last two tracks. So
yeah,
I really appreciate that he was able to sort of take that sound and translate it, and even incorporate his own sort of style and twist into it.
I love that growling bass too.
I didn't notice it until you pointed it out. And I was like, wow, that is the
yeah. That was really cool. And it just kind of gave like a really nice gravel to the track that I don't think that if Manfred Linsner was working on the track, I don't think that necessarily would have been in it, because maybe they would have just more went by the book with it, you know. Yeah. So it was a cool sound to it. So Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure was the first Game Boy Advance. Actually, it was the first game that was not exclusive to Sony.
Right.
So yeah, it was the 7th release of the franchise. This game is really fun, actually. I picked this up a long time ago because I had heard that it's one of the best handheld Crash games out there. So I was like, oh yeah, let me find out. So I bought it for like $2 somewhere and played it. And I didn't get very far, but I did enjoy when I played it. It's interesting because it felt to me more like the original Crash Bandicoot, like the very first one, but side-scrolling instead. Yeah,
okay.
it had like a very bare bones basic feel that the first game had.
Yeah,
you know,
using like the map system, or are you talking about like on
just the
entire
feel
thing?
of the controls and everything, like the way the game played. It didn't feel like they were trying to do anything different or wacky or crazy. There were no like jet skis or any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But the game is, story-wise, Crash has to gather 20 crystals and reverse the Earth is shrinking, so he's got to reverse that. That's courtesy of our favorite doctor, Neo Cortex. Yeah, it does take place in hubs where you can like teleport all over different places on the Earth.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. There's like, you know, there's like 5 levels in a boss, and then, you know, that's the end of the hub. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I just realized as you're talking about this game, we did not talk about much about Crash 1 or Crash 3. I mean, I think it's safe to say
I think we talked about the plot a little bit, but
yeah, I was going to say, I think it's safe to say that for the most part, these games really do follow a tried and true formula. So for those who aren't familiar with the Crash games, you've never played them or somehow never seen them, they are about, you play as Crash Bandicoot. I think we talked about that a little bit, but every stage, you're usually trying to find crystals. Every game, somehow Dr. Cortex gets it in his head that he needs to get these crystals, and if he can't get them, he can get you to get them and then steal them from you or something like that.
Yeah, I always thought it was weird how complacent Crash was in just hunting down random stuff for this doctor. Like, he never is like, go get bent. Like, that would be more of a Sonic thing, where he'd be like, you know, forget you, Eggman, you know? Yeah,
well, in the first game, I don't even remember what the deal was and how that got brought in on the first game, but in the second game,
well, it was Tawna, because he was going.
Oh, that's right. He was doing it because Tawna was kidnapped. Yep. In the second game, you're doing it because he basically teleports you somewhere and then tells you there's I think like a comet or something's heading towards the Earth, and like we need to do something about it, and the only way to do something about it is to get these crystals so that I can like redirect it or blow it up or something. So in the beginning, you're like, oh, okay, I guess we're trying to save the world, and then you find out that, oh, in reality he's got something else planned.
Right.
And in the third game, I think it's...
There's a new enemy.
Well, in the third game, Uka Uka comes out, and that's the evil mask. And then there's also Dr. Entropy. I don't know if it's Dr. Engine or if it's just Engine. I think he's in the second game as well. But there's a bunch more like lackeys, I guess you can call them. And it really seems like there is no structure or order for the bad guys, because I mean, Cortex takes orders from Uka Uka, and Engine takes orders from Cortex, and so does Entropy. But at some point, Entropy takes over. It's kind of confusing, but they're all kind of like vying for their own evil schemes.
It's like the Brotherhood of Doctors, the evil Brotherhood of Doctors.
I thought you were gonna, for whatever reason, I thought you were gonna say it's like the Brotherhood of Stupid Doctors.
Yeah, that too, I guess.
Instead of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that, and I mean, every game, you've got those crates. You break the crates by jumping on them or smashing them or spinning into them, and you get Wumpa fruit, and the Wumpa fruit, you get 100 of them. They're like the coins from Mario. You get 100 and you get another life. And some of the crates will have 1 or 5, or they'll have an Aku Aku mask that gives you basically an extra hit point.
Right.
Collect 3 and get temporary invincibility.
So the publisher on the first few games up until 2000 was Sony, and then Universal jumped in, and they were the publishers of the series. Konami was the publisher in Japan, which maybe that is the reason why Konami is listed through all of this. But then Vivendi bought them out, and then Activision. Franchise publishing wise just keeps getting handed off to all these various different companies. Luckily, most of the games that were developed are either like really good and fun, or they're lackluster and just kind of meh games. They're average platform action adventures. I've never heard anybody be like, oh, that Crash game is terrible. You know what I mean? Like, everybody who talks about Crash Bandicoot that I've spoken to is like, yeah, those games are okay, those later games, but like the real stuff that you want to check out is the Naughty Dog games and like, some of the other, a handful of other games. But I gotta say, the Huge Adventure is a lot of fun. I would highly recommend picking it up, if not just for the soundtrack, but also the really fun gameplay.
Yeah. Nice.
I figure we'll talk about Manfred Linsner a little later.
Yeah, because he's in some other ones.
Yeah, but we'll talk about Todd Maston, because he's not listed anywhere else on our credits.
Yeah.
He started off with Underworld in 1998. No, that's not the movie Underworld. It's
almost like the jokes that I'm going to make.
Oh, I know. I knew as soon you'd be like, oh, so is there any, tight leather, cat-suited dominatrix kind of style Kate Beckinsale's in there? No. Justin, get your head out of the gutter.
I'd actually be asking more about old decrepit Bill Nighy's. So,
or the
shows
singer,
how much you know.
Or the singer from Creed who looks like the main guy, Scott Stapp.
I know, we've talked about this before.
I know, we've talked about it privately, but I've never had the opportunity to make a joke. But yeah, the dude from Underworld, the movie, the dude who turns into like the super werewolf hybrid or whatever. Yeah. He is totally Scott Stapp from Creed. Anyways, Tunnel Blaster was the next game in 1998. Let's jump way forward because we're wasting too much time talking about Scott Stapp. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition was his newest game in 2019. He's the audio director on. So, he continued working on Crash games and did a lot of like licensed stuff like SpongeBob and Disney Pixar Cars and stuff like that. So he's still working to this day.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like we're getting a call on the caller request hotline. Janine, can you go ahead and put that through for us?
XVGM Radio. Who's this? What can we do for you?
Mayday! Mayday! Can you hear me?
Yeah. Who's this?
This is Coco Bandicoot. Crash and I are trying to get off this island, but our rocket ship is busted. Can you send us a rocket ship?
I'm not sure. Hey, Janine, are you able to send Coco and Crash like a rocket ship or something? Oh, you can?
Cool.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, hey, one rocket ship coming up. Just hold on. Hey, while you're waiting, do you want some music?
Sounds great. How about a track about my favorite tiger, Tiny?
Yeah, I think we can do something about that. That's actually a good point to play something from the Insane trilogy. So here is from the Crash 3, part of the Insane trilogy, which came out on the PS4 in 2017, Xbox One, Switch, and PC in 2018. This is Tiny Tiger, originally done by Mutato Musica, but arranged by the VV audio team. Welcome back to our Crash-tacular Spectacular. That was Tiny Tiger, as requested by Crash and Coco. That came off of the Insane Trilogy version of Crash 3 Warped. That came out on the PS4 in 2017, and the Xbox, Switch, and PC in 2018, and was arranged by the VV Audio team, with the original soundtrack being done by Mutato Musica.
Cool. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, those levels are a bit of fun. Similar to the Wave Runner levels, they're somewhat frustrating, but it's because you're in the Wave Runner levels. It's frustrating because there's waves and the water physics are weird. In this one, it's one of the few levels that are on rails. So like the Tiger and the motorcycle racing, you're on rails. Like you're just steering where you're going.
Right.
Trying to avoid getting
you're playing as Coco, who's riding Tiny the Tiger.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, they kind of started introducing more like vehicle style elements.
I think that was sort of the allure to 3. In this one, the cover for this one, he and Coco are both on motorcycles, so it's very clearly one of the draws. I will say, I don't think they did it in 2. I think 3 was the first one where they started making certain levels were Coco only.
Yeah.
Like these levels, specifically the Tiny Tiger levels, and I think the Wave Runner levels, if you jump at the teleportation orb or whatever it is as Crash, he falls through and then Coco walks up and jumps in.
So I really love the guitar in this. Like, you don't hear that much guitar in the Crash series throughout it, but this was really energetic and lively, and it kind of got my ears to perk up. I was like, whoa, okay, there's not just xylophone and steel drum in this one. There's, you know, which that's not really the true, I mean, that's like the iconic, like, if you want a good Crash song, that's what you need to have in it to make it identifiable to the sound of Crash. But, you know, that's kind of the same thing as, you know, saying, well, Mario music has to only have big band style and, you know, or reggae, Jamaican kind of music, and Sonic can only have, I don't know, either punk
or Michael Jackson.
Basically, yeah. So Mutato Musica did the original on this, but then you said VV Audio team did the arrangement?
Yeah, and I can't actually find anything about them.
Is VV like Vivendi or something like that?
That's what I was thinking too, but this wasn't a Vivendi.
Was this Naughty Dog again?
No. So it was developed by, Vicarious Visions. That's VV.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That was the developer, and the publisher was Activision. Okay, yeah, I must have missed that somehow.
It's interesting because they worked on other games in the franchise kind of off and on, so it's nice to see them return. I mean, Vicarious Visions is a phenomenal developer, so they've always made a lot of really, really great games. So I'm about it with them. Good stuff. Yeah. I guess we'll move on to our next track.
Sure.
Yeah. So my next pick is going backwards in time to the second Crash Bandicoot game, Cortex Strikes Back. This came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1997. This track is called The Eel Deal, Sewer or Later, Hanging Out by Mutato Musica.
Hello there, Dr. Neo Cortex here. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, ugh, I'm such a bandicoot, how disgusting? Well, rest assured, because I have the perfect product for you. Introducing Yaku, the mask that shows your true beauty. Here, Coco, see true beauty as it was always intended.
Ugh, this mask just shows me your face. Gross.
Oh, well then, it looks like that's just how true your beauty is. Let's try it on someone a little older, Tawna?
Alright, let's see here. Yuck. What a terribly ugly mask. It makes me look like you.
Oh, how delightful! I guess that's the true beauty within you.
This true beauty is about to shove your mask where the sun don't shine.
I'll kidnap you.
And I'll kick your behind into the next sequel.
Oh, fine. Well, maybe the fine folks at home want one. All proceeds go directly towards the Bad Guys Always Win charity, also known as BACA. Send your order request to notsoniceneo@geocities.gov. Order now, or else.
Warning, may be toxic. Do not wear it for more than 3 minutes. Sale to minors who aren't Coco Bandicoot is strictly prohibited. Non-Bandicoots get your grandparents' permission before emailing. Utah residents get your Bandicoot's permission before emailing. No CODs.
Welcome back. That was Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. That came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1997. The track's name was The Eel Deal, Sewer or Later, Hanging Out by Mutato Musica. I got a real Donkey Kong Country vibe from this one.
Yeah, it has this. I'm not really sure how to explain it. It's almost like an emptiness. Like, not that the Donkey Kong Country music is empty,
sure,
but there are certain songs and certain settings where the music in Donkey Kong Country feels kind of minimalist, and it fits really well with the levels and stuff.
Yeah,
and this to me kind of has a similar feel. Like, you have what sounds like somebody playing music on water pipes, and it's just, to me, that's almost all there is. Like, obviously there's a lot of other stuff going on, but like I get kind of hyper focused on that, and there's like a weird echo on it, and it's not really weird, but there's like an echo on it, and it almost feels empty. I wouldn't call it hollow, but it makes the experience feel like empty-ish.
I think the main thing that does it is definitely those, I don't even know.
Like
you mentioned
chimes?
water, like somebody playing like a water pipe, and that
I mean, like pipes in your ceiling. If you like, with a hammer.
yeah. There's a lot of Donkey Kong Country sounds that sound like that. You know, there's a lot of like kind of jungle vibes, and I got a jungle vibe from this for sure. Not to say that it doesn't have those, you know, typical like Crash moments that kind of come in right after that. You know, the ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
You get that little plucky kind of guitar that kind of comes in. Just really makes the song sound different than any other song that I've heard so far. You know, other than, you know, some funky bass, some like growling bass lines, some stuff like that. It's all pretty much sounded like Crash music has always sounded. So
agreed.
When I heard this one, it kind of made me perk up and go, oh wow, okay, you know, it's different, and yet it's not biting a sound directly off of a game. It's more like, I would say, inspired.
Oh yeah, I feel like there's a number of things just sort of generally in Crash that was somewhat inspired by the DKC series. I don't know enough about like the history and development and the people that made it to know if there really is anything there, but like there's a lot that I mean, especially when you look at the first game, there's a lot that I can really see there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, this was one of those pushes into 3D that they really tried to make possible on the PlayStation. The sequel kind of continued that aspect. I mean, you and I, when we were both playing on the PS3, we were playing the original.
Oh, the originals, yep.
We put the disc in on the PS3 and we were playing it. And what was weird about that is, you know, I'm really kind of, I did not get a PS3 when it came out. I instead got the 360.
Yep.
And I love my 360. It's great, but like the fact that you can play PS1 games on a PS3 is really awesome.
Yeah, when I discovered that, it blew my mind.
Yeah,
I did not know that for years, actually.
At the same time, like, if you played this game or any of the early Crash games on the PS3, I don't know what it is. It made it feel and look different. Like, I don't know if it was running at a higher resolution or frame rate or something like that, but it didn't feel like playing it. I was like missing stuff that I wouldn't normally miss, and I just couldn't figure out what it is. So maybe somebody can tell us, if it does in fact run.
You know
at a
what most of the
frame
responses to that are going to be, right? You're getting old. We're both getting old.
We're getting old, yeah.
It's like, no, the game didn't change. You just got old.
Right.
I don't know.
You're an old man.
What we should have done, and I didn't think of this until now, is we should have popped the games into the PS2 on the CRT that I have.
That's true.
And tried playing them there, because if we still have the same problems, then it's just we're just getting old.
Right,
but if it was different, then I would guess it's something to do with like controller lag or something like that. Like, you don't normally notice it on PS3 because I think PS3 games are calibrated for, because PS3 was the first wireless controller situation, or like built-in wireless controller.
Built-in wireless controller.
I mean, wireless controllers have been around since the NES, I know, but like the PS3 was a wireless controller situation, whereas the PS2 you still have the wired controllers.
Right.
So
that could be it.
Yeah, and it's something that I've always sort of known and heard is like the wireless controllers, wireless keyboards, wireless mice. Like, if you are going to be a real gamer, you have to have, or quote unquote, you have to have like wired everything, because then there's no lag. It's all just immediate electrical impulses. I'm like, maybe there's something to that. I do remember way back playing with like a Bluetooth or a wireless controller on my PC when I was emulating Mega Man 3, which was a game that I almost knew by heart, and I could not play it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, that was also back in college, so I feel like wireless technology has gotten better. Who knows?
Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin were the guys who were working on the game, and they did try to create intentionally a 3D action platform game with taking inspiration from Donkey Kong Country, Mario, and Sonic. Nice. So, it was definitely something that was intentional as far as that goes. Maybe not necessarily the sound, so to speak, but at least like gameplay-wise, they were. Yeah,
well, I wonder how much control they had over the sound. I'm sure they had some input, but honestly, with Mark and Josh, I feel like you could probably just tell them to have fun, and they're going to give you something good. So, who knows?
I'm going to tell you a little tidbit about Crash Bandicoot. Originally, they were working on the character, and his name was Willy the Wombat.
Yep.
But interestingly enough, did you know that there was a game later that came out that was called Willy the Wombat?
I did not.
Yep. Yeah, there was a game that came out for the Saturn called Willy the Wombat, and it was Japan only, but oddly enough, it's completely in English. So it's totally playable.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So Saturn collectors, go check out that game because it's really cool. Anywho, so this game's plot...
Cortex is out in space and is getting you to collect the crystals to save the world, but really being a jerk. I know that totally helps.
There we go. All the games, for the most part, take place in Australia, or a group of islands near Australia, just so you know. And this one included. Crash is abducted by Dr. Neo Cortex, who tricks him into thinking that, he's a good guy and he's trying to actually save the world. As you talked about before in the other break, he wants to go to Insanity Island, or have Crash go to Insanity Island, and gather up a bunch of crystals that will allow Cortex to align the planets, so that way he can keep the planet from being destroyed. But that's when we get an introduction to Crash's sister Coco, as well as Cortex's former assistant, Dr. Nitrous Brio, who warns him about...
Embryo, right.
Right, Embryo. So that was the plot of Crash 2. And we already talked about Mutato Musica, so we can move on to the next track.
Yeah, so this next one, we're going to go back to the GBA here. This is going to be, this was an interesting crossover series. So this is Crash Bandicoot Purple, Ripto's Rampage. Came out in the GBA in 2004. The track is Tanks for the Memories. And it was most likely composed by Manfred Linsner. We'll talk about that when we come back. Welcome back to our spectacular Crash Bash that was Crash Bandicoot Purple, Ripto's Rampage, the 2004 GBA game composed more than likely by Manfred Linzner, and the track was Tanks for the Memories.
Good stuff.
Very good stuff.
I mean, reminds me a lot of the initial games that were coming out, of the original franchise. So
Yeah. Very, very simplistic, but also, again, making the GBA work and sound like what we'd expect out of this music. Like, again, sounding like the first couple of games.
Yeah. But different enough from Huge Adventure as well. I mean, same console.
Yeah.
Or same handheld, rather. But it didn't have the Linzner flair, if you will. It tried, I think, more to emulate the original games than try to maybe do its own thing, kind of in there as well.
Yeah. So, as far as Linzner goes, I am not 100% sure on this. So, checking the credits on Moby Games, there's no music or composer credits. The closest thing we get is audio, and it lists Shinen Multimedia, which is a German-based video game company. Wikipedia lists Manfred Linzner as the composer for this and its companion game. So, if you're wondering why there's a Crash game referencing Ripto, it's because there's also a Spyro game called Spyro Orange, the Cortex Conspiracy. I think they called these Spyro Fusion, or I forget what it was, but it was this weird crossover with Crash and Spyro on the GBA, and it's pretty neat.
That's cool.
Not 100% sure. If anybody out there knows for sure, let us know. And Mike, if you happen to figure it out, let me know. But yeah, it looks like the credits just may not have actually listed anybody. The plot across these games is that Dr. Neo Cortex and Ripto join forces to try to get rid of Crash and Spyro. So what they do is they genetically modify Ripto's Riptalk minions from the Spyro games, and they disguise them as Crash and Spyro, is sort of in a almost like Knuckles from Sonic 3 situation.
Okay.
So they're making the one that looks like Spyro goes to Crash, the one that looks like Crash goes to Spyro, and they make each other think that they are the enemies.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah. So similar to the previous GBA Crash game, this is also a 2D platformer, and it looks, it looks pretty good for what it is. It looks a lot like, I hate to continuously reference Donkey Kong Country, but it reminds me of what Donkey Kong Country looked like on the SNES.
Okay.
It very, very much like pushing the graphical capabilities of the GBA as far as I can tell.
Cool.
But yeah, 2D side scroller, collecting Wumpa fruit, trying to stop Spyro until you realize that Spyro is not really your enemy, and then turning on Ripto and Dr. Cortex to stop them from being jerks.
Right.
As you do.
As you do. Let's move into my next pick, which is Crash Mind Over Mutant. This came out on the Wii, the PlayStation 2, the Xbox 360, and the PSP, all in 2008. This track is called Subterranean Bandicoot, and it's by Mark Barrel. you're back. And that track that we heard was Crash Mind Over Mutant. That's the name of the game. Came out on the Wii, PS2, 360, and PlayStation Portable in 2008. And that track was called Subterranean Bandicoot by Mark Barrel. What do you think of that one? That was wacky, huh?
That was really wacky. That is, I would say, different than anything else that we've played so far tonight.
I got to agree with that. And that's probably the reason why I picked it. Because I was, the eyes were starting to glaze, or the ears were starting to glaze over a little bit with, the steel drums and the xylophones and the plucky guitar and bass and the funky bass. I needed something out of the spectrum of Crash music. And then I found this track and was just like, whoa, like this sounds like drum and bass that like Square Pusher would make.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the album Hard Normal Daddy, get familiar with it because it's a great album. But this reminded me of like a slower, more like methodical Square Pusher, so to speak. Yeah, very grindy, very industrial vibes going on there. It was really cool. I was digging this one. And, the elements of Subterranean Bandicoot really make sense here. It just sounds like something you'd hear in a subterranean lair.
Underground cavern.
Yeah. Like, it felt very cavernous. It felt very exploratory.
You're very cavernous. Nice.
So, Crash Mind Over Mutant, 15th installment of the series, but the 7th in the main franchise. So this is considered like a canon, like main story. The plot of the game centers on, it kind of makes fun of like iPhones and mobile handheld devices, phones, where a popular device that people use, for entertainment and phone calls and whatnot, puts whoever is using it under the control of Dr. Neo Cortex or Dr. Nitrous Brio. So I guess he's back being an evil dude. So Crash is the only one who is not affected by this, aside from, of course, Aku Aku, the mask. Mm-hmm. So Crash kind of has to take on some of his friends. His sister, Coco, is under the influence. So she should have paid attention to the frying pan and the egg commercial, So, yeah, it's weird. Like, some places it's called a beat-em-up, some places it's called a platformer. I am not sure because I've not played this game, but it looks really cool. You're playing as Crash, and you're just at your home of Wumpa Island trying to destroy the NV. That's what it's called. The personal assistant device.
The NV was a phone, so that's...
Oh yeah, LG NV.
LG, that's the one.
It was ENV, though.
Yeah. This is just the letter N, the letter V.
That is kind of funny, yeah. Mm-hmm. So there is co-op play, and depending on which version of the game you get, produces different results depending on who you want to play as. For example, in the PlayStation 2 version, you're doing co-op with Carbon Crash, who is a white furred version of Crash. It's kind of like, Silver the Hedgehog, so to speak, or, something like that. Shadow, I don't know.
Oh, does this version have a gun?
Yes. Yeah. You can play as Coco, but not until she's defeated in a boss fight. Mm-hmm. But from what I understand, the Wii version has Coco in it. And I've read up quite a bit on the versions and which version is the best. And I would say, based on what I'm reading, the Wii version or the PS2 version is what you want to go with.
Really?
Yeah, the 360 version apparently was not great. And I think is either the PSP version or the DS version, because it also came out on the DS, but it was a slightly different game, and it just was considered lackluster, just not good. Yeah, no, the PS2 and the Wii versions were the best versions, and I'm not sure why the 360 version was considered not good, but who knows? I guess I'll have to check them out. But yeah, if the rest of the music is as impressive as this track was, I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mark Barrel, the composer, started off in 1993 with a game called Pele. He did groovy tunes, according to his credit.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. He continued working on the Genesis with a lot of sports games, stuff like NHL Championship 2000 and NBA Basketball 2000, NHL Power Play 96. He jumped from platform to platform, continuing to do like sports games and stuff, until he then jumped on to do the Simpsons Road Rage in 2001 as a sound director. He's bounced back and forth between composition and directing of sound. He continued working on the Crash series, starting with Crash of the Titans, at least in terms of like the actual like in-game stuff, not like the racing games, which he also worked on.
Right.
His latest game is in 2010, Mod Nation Racers, and he's considered a composer on that game.
Neat.
All right, well, it looks like we're getting a call on the Patreon request hotline, which is always a special call.
Oh, yeah. Janine, we want to send that on over?
XVGM Radio, who's this and what can we do for you?
Thanks, Janine. Hey, guys. Scotty McElhone here. Sitting here on my porch, waiting for Meowskis to come over to do a house call, and I heard that you were doing a Crash Bandicoot show. I would love if you could play Neo's Complex from Crash of the Titans. Thanks, fellas.
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that for you, Scotty. So this is going to be Crash of the Titans. This came out in the GBA and the Nintendo DS in 2007. This is the Game Boy Advance version of the music. The track is Neo's Complex, and it was composed by Mark Yiend and Tom Miller.
Hey, you are back, and that was Scott McElhone's pick, Crash of the Titans. This game came out on lots of systems. Came out on the Game Boy Advance, which is the version that we played. Also came out on the DS, the PSP, the PlayStation 2, the 360, and the Nintendo Wii in 2007. And that track was by Mark Yiend and Tom Miller. It was called Neo's Complex. It really should have been called Chips Ahoy.
Yeah.
I know we played a track from episode 3 that was very Chips Ahoy-ish. I think it was the intro music, if I recall.
Might have been, yeah.
From like a Monopoly game or something like that. I think it was Monopoly DS. But that was also a Chips Ahoy, like bum 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 bum, like a big band kind of jazzy song.
I forgot about those commercials.
Yeah,
those were a good time.
Yeah, man. Anytime I hear kettle drums played like that, I instantly think Chips Ahoy.
Huh?
I just have to. Don't you?
No, I'm not a corporate shill.
No. Yo, I'm not a corporate shill. I'm a cookie shill.
Oh, I'll do anything for cookies.
You'll do anything for cookies?
Almost anything.
Like a cookie monster?
Like a cookie monster. Like
Yeah.
a Lady Gaga party monster cookie monster.
Like a Halloween sexy nurse, but like a sexy cookie monster costume?
No.
Like that sort of thing? No? Okay. All right. Anyways, so Crash of the Titans. This game is a beat 'em up.
Yeah.
And it's the 6th game in the main franchise. I guess the timeline, if you will. The core timeline.
If we can call it that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. The game is about this stuff called Mojo, which Dr. Neo Cortex is back with his niece Nina. And what they're doing is they're taking this substance, they're finding it, and they're taking it and they're injecting it into the people of Wumpa Island. and they're building an army of these mutants called Titans, and hence why it's called Crash of the Titans. So Crash Bandicoot has to stop both of them. He uses this technique. It's something that you would normally do alone, maybe in front of the computer with nobody around, maybe some headphones. It's called jacking.
Yeah, you jack your headphones into the computer.
Right, exactly.
Then,
Yeah. But in this circumstance, jacking is taking control of the Titans.
I assume it's to play on the word hijacking. Like you're hijacking their minds.
Maybe
you're lowjacking.
Or you could be. I mean, some
Depends on where your mind is.
some guys like the low jack,
If mine's in the gutter, it doesn't get much lower.
Hey, that's very true. That's 100% true. But let's bring it back to respectful territory, because now we got to talk about Coco. Because Coco has been kidnapped, and she is being made to build a doomsday machine that will kind of like spread the mojo out. Because, if there's more mojo, then there's more dudes that can jack.
Right. There's more dudes to jack.
Or,
yes.
I'm sorry, yes, there's more dudes to jack. Right,
Yes.
right. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, the music was cool. I was digging this, and the game looks really fun, so I will have to pick it up. I don't know if I'll pick it up on the Game Boy Advance. I don't know. What do you think?
So the handheld version is different from the console version, but from what I've been seeing, the Game Boy Advance version and the Nintendo DS version are fairly close to being identical. So I would say the DS version is going to be superior regardless, because it's better hardware, there's more they can do with it. So I would probably go with the Nintendo DS version over the Game Boy Advance.
Word.
There are some differences too, like the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS versions have Dingo Dial, who's a common minion of Cortex. He exclusively appears in the DS and GBA versions.
Oh, okay. So maybe grab the Game Boy Advance version, because the DS version had a different composer, different soundtrack.
That's right. Yeah,
Right.
The DS version had who was it? Nathaniel Papadakis.
Right.
As
Yeah.
as their composer.
Right.
That's fair.
Yeah, so probably grab the Game Boy Advance version, maybe like one of the Big Brother versions, like the Wii or the I don't know, PS2. I would probably grab it for PS2, just because if there's no other specific reason. I mean, like we were talking about before, like I gotta have my Crash on my Sony platform.
Right. Yep.
Gotta keep that exclusive.
Good call.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it as far as this game goes.
Yeah, so Mark Yeend, it's a really weird name to say, Yeend. So he started out doing sound effects and engineering on Young Dilbert High-Tech Hijinks in 1997, went on to do music in Racin' Rats in 2000, Magic School Bus in Concert also in 2000. He was really busy in 2000, actually, a lot of stuff there. In 2001, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, did music on that. Composer and audio lead on Disney Pixar Finding Nemo in 2003. And most recently, they are a content director in Sunset Overdrive that came out in 2018.
Nice.
And then Tom Miller started out with music and sound effects in Sea Rogue in 1992, then went on to The Sims Vacation in 2002. Bit of a 10-year leap there. And then Bionicle Heroes in 2006, Legend of Spyro, The Eternal Night in 2007, and finally this game, Crash of the Titans, in 2007.
All right, so let's get into your next pick. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so this is going to be Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex, which came out on the PS2 in 2001, and the GameCube and Xbox in 2002. The track is Wizards and Lizards, and it was composed by Swallow Studios, Andy Blythe, and Martin Justra. Welcome back. That was from Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex, the 2001 PS2 game that eventually came out on the Xbox and GameCube in 2002. The track was Wizards and Lizards by Swallow Studios' Andy Blythe and Martin Justra.
Cool. I got a real hardcore Banjo-Kazooie vibe from this. I think it's that polka sound. That
I was just going to say there's a bit of polka in there.
Yeah, for sure. But it kind of goes away towards the end, you know?
Yeah.
But it's so prominent to the point where I was like, started listening to this and I was like, wait a minute, did he put on a banjo song? Like, what just happened?
Oops, I totally screwed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think this was right around the time that Crash was getting licensed out or getting bought out by other companies because it was, I mean, this is the first game that was not exclusive to the PlayStation. Yeah, because just before that was Crash Bash.
Right. Well, the first game that wasn't exclusive, I think, was The Huge Adventure.
That was 2002. Yeah, and Wrath of Cortex was 2001.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it did come out exclusively on the PS2 originally, and I'm not sure if that was a timed exclusive.
Yeah, that might have been. Yeah, that makes sense, because it came out on PlayStation in 2001, so they probably had some sort of license deal or something, which got broken later.
Yeah. When The Huge Adventure came out on the Game Boy Advance, that's also around the time that Wrath of Cortex came out on the Xbox and the GameCube. So
Wrath of Cortex, tell me about the plot on this one.
Interestingly enough, I feel like the story on the opening on this feels kind of similar to the opening on It's About Time, but it picks up shortly after the end of Crash 3, and Uka Uka is ticked off at all of the other villains because nobody's been able to. They have a terrible track record for spreading evil, is what
bumbling doctors.
Yeah, complains about. But so he's trying to get everybody to come up with something. Dr. Cortex goes, well, like, I've got this super secret project of this genetically enhanced super weapon with unbelievable strength, but it doesn't have a power source. So Uka Uka says, well, there's these elemental things that we can harness, and they might be a good power source for you. So they're going out to do that. And then when a bunch of natural disasters start happening with crazy frequency, Aku Aku realizes that, the elementals have been released and are wreaking havoc on the world. So he, gets Crash and Coco and is like, hey, we have to save the world again. And that is the impetus for getting out there and saving the world.
So in the game and in the, I'm trying to think, because Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, has recently been released, but this game was technically considered the fourth Crash Bandicoot game, but I can't really find any sources specifically saying that. And on the front cover of the game, it's called Wrath of Cortex.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. So they didn't number this one. They did number 3. I never actually noticed until just now, but the 3 is in the stopwatch that's in the background.
I figured as much. I figured that there was a 3 in that one. So
yeah,
the first 3 are numbered, and then the fourth one, well, what would have been the fourth one is not numbered. Yeah. So I guess they were kind of like trying to take it back and make it so that, this new game is like, oh, we're back, but it's not the original developers.
No, that's the thing. Like,
right.
I'm wondering if that's part of it too. If like when it left Naughty Dog, if it was sort of a like stop numbering them situation, because none of them really have numbers.
Right.
But for fans of Crash, this was the fourth game. I mean, it was the fourth main series or mainline game,
right.
So this was Crash 4.
Just wasn't called that. It's like with Castlevania 64, it's not actually called Castlevania 64, it's just fans put the 64 on it. Right.
Yeah.
So.
And then the game that came out recently, It's About Time, actually does have, it is called Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time.
Right. So they're very clearly trying to take advantage of the hype of it going back to canon numbered.
Oh yeah, and well, I mean, and with the Insane trilogy that had come out, 3 years before, it was just a matter of like, so 1, 2, and 3 are out. People probably know them. Let's like stamp this as 4. I mean, this isn't by Naughty Dog either. This is the 4 was by Toys for Bob.
Right.
So it ruins my theory from earlier, actually. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's not bad. So Andy Blythe and Martin Justra are both Swallow Studios music people, so that's why I said that way. Andy Blythe started with Mickey Mania in 1994 doing the music for that, and went on to do mostly Disney stuff, actually. Disney Toy Story in 95, Disney Pixar Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear in 2000, Disney Pixar Finding Nemo in 2003. So there's a few other things, like Formula One Championship Racing in 97. They did the Grand Prix mode music, and Haven Call of the King in 2002. They did the music on that as well.
I think that's a PS2 game, yeah.
Ah, yes. And then Martin Justra, I just noticed his resume is exactly the same. So started with Mickey Mania in 94, Disney's Toy Story, Ring Cycle, I didn't mention that, in 1996.
How dare you.
Blast Radius in 1998. They did tracks 1 through 6. Mm-hmm. And other than that, Disney Pixar Finding Nemo in 2003 was the last one.
All right, let's move into my next pick. This is Crash Bandicoot Twinsanity. This came out on the PS2 and Xbox in 2004. The track is called Cavern Catastrophe, and it's by Spiral Mouth. Hey, welcome back to our Crash Bandicoot Crash-tacular crash-splosion of music.
Nice.
That was terrible. That was from Crash Bandicoot Twinsanity. This came out on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox in 2004, and the track you just heard was Cavern Catastrophe, and it was by Spiral Mouth.
I don't believe you.
You don't believe me?
I think you just recorded this track in the studio when I wasn't around.
Yep.
And now you're trying to
right.
Get your own demo tape on the air.
Just trying to pass it out there, man. I've always wanted to be in an a cappella group, so I just made my own.
This was super silly.
Yeah.
I really like this. Depending on what else we have, this might be pick of the night.
Ooh.
It's just similar to, what was the other track that you played? That I think like Crash Bandicoot 2.
Yeah.
Like you playing things that kind of like break out of the Crash mold, where most of the stuff that I've been doing and will continue to do is sort of like within the Crash. Like it's very Crash music, like you were saying before. And not that your stuff isn't Crash music, because obviously it isn't Crash games, but it has a different feel and a different sound to what we're normally used to hearing. And that's really neat, because I wasn't really expecting to be surprised by any of the music in this episode. Like I was expecting for us to kind of like kick back and chill out to a bunch of like silly tunes with steel drums
and xylophones, right?
And that would have been great. But like you've brought these other things in that are just like, what the heck? Where did this even come from?
I tried to go for tracks that don't sound like Crash music because I wanted to showcase that Crash is not a one-note musical band, so to speak. It's not just this type of music. So Spiral Mouth, I wanted to get them out of the way first. They're an a cappella group, obviously, that is most famous for doing work on Crash Twinsanity and Crash Tag Team Racing. So they did both those games. They also have an album that came out in 1999 called Spiral Mouth. And yeah, that's about it for them. The group is composed of Michael Blanchard, Tony Field, Rebecca Nubuhi, V. Lee, Chris Miller, and Gabriel Mann. So, good stuff. I like a cappella music a lot. So, you know, when I heard this, it made me perk up, and I was like, oh, this is so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun and goofy, and, you know, which is weird because this game started off as Crash Bandicoot Evolution during development. Like, they were working on the game, and it was supposed to have, like, a much more serious tone. It was supposed to be more like Ratchet and Clank, like that sort of game.
Oh, like open world?
Yeah. But they restarted the production entirely and started off a more comedic game called Crash Twinsanity.
That's funny, because there are a number of games that I was reading about in the Crash universe that started off, or at some point were talked about changing to an open world format, and then they just never did it.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm not sure, but, you know, this game kind of broke the mold as far as music goes for the franchise. I mean, yeah, like some of the other games had some weird tracks here and there, like with the previous track that I picked, but yeah, this one just came out of left field and was just like, oh man, this is really fun and goofy. And, you know, they really did try to make that work for that type of game. But this one, you are teaming up with Dr. Cortex in an attempt to try to explore more of his character, at least story-wise, in the game. And also, the voice actor for Dr. Cortex was replaced. Instead of Clancy Brown, it was Lex Lang who replaced him.
This also follows up from Wrath of Cortex, right?
Yeah, I believe so. You can play as 3 different characters: Crash Bandicoot, Dr. Neo Cortex, and Nina Cortex.
Oh.
Who is the gothic niece of Dr. Neo Cortex. Yeah, so there you go. Where Coco is, I do not know. But yeah, this game, you know, these later games tried to focus more on Crash and less on, like, you know, his sister and stuff like that. I guess Coco is still in the game, but, like, she definitely took a back seat to this new character, Nina. So this game was developed by Traveler's Tales, a company that has been releasing stuff since the early Sega days. So really great developer there. I don't have much else to say about Crash Bandicoot Twinsanity. I need to pick it up because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds great. And the idea of playing as some new characters is also appealing, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, no, it's pretty neat.
I'm finding myself more and more engaged in the Crash franchise as I dig deeper. It's like I find all these games and I'm like, you know what, that sounds really fun. And again, most of these games are getting really good reviews for the most part. So, like, it's weird because it's like I ignored the franchise for so long until the new games came out, and now I'm kind of diving back in, you know, because of this episode, and I'm like, yo, I need to check out some of these games. They're really fun.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that some of the games might have lower scores is because they didn't innovate much. And, you know, looking back, I understand why they'd score like that, but honestly, just because a game doesn't innovate, just because a Crash game is similar to previous Crash games or doesn't, like, add anything new to the universe, like, the story for one can still be fun, and, like, as we've said a million times, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't change much because because it doesn't need to necessarily. Like
Right.
it already has a successful blueprint. Like it's done what it's done, and yeah, we may want something new, and the newness comes in different level layouts, different boss patterns, stuff like that. And I mean, if they were literally remaking the same game over and over, nobody would buy it. But I don't know. I find myself these days getting more and more like kind of just done with a lot of the reviews that are like, oh, we're gonna score it real low because it's a fun game, but it doesn't do anything new.
They've been doing that since the Mega Man days, where it suffers from Mega Man syndrome, where the early Mega Man games, once you played the first 3, and then it was like, 4 through 6, people would say they're not good because they're the same game or they play similar. Well,
the level
that's what
layouts are
makes them
totally
great.
different. Yeah, like you still, like if
you still have new robot masters, you still have new weapons and everything.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Crash.
Yeah.
You still have new levels. You still have a new, basis of what's going on in terms of the story. There's new elements in the game that they're introducing. Just because the game doesn't completely modernize to an open world or a sandbox game or whatever, like Crash Bandicoot shouldn't need to do that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I could play a Crash Bandicoot game that was open world. I already have enough problems playing open world games as it is.
Yeah, and those games are just so long.
That's the thing. Yeah. Like, we don't need a 50-hour Crash game. Like, give me something I can beat in a weekend.
Sure.
And I will probably continue to replay it, because the way the Crash games are built, as we talked earlier, is that you play the level and then there are other reasons to go back and play the level. Like, you get the gem or the crystal or whatever, and you go back and you play the level again. And you can either do the time trial or you can go for the hidden gems. And I mean, it doesn't have to even be either or. You go back and play the level multiple times, and I don't know. I like that in the time trials, the level changes slightly as well.
Yeah. So I guess we can jump from something older to something completely modern.
Yep.
Speaking of which.
Yeah. So now we can finally get into it. Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time.
Yeah, it is about time.
Yeah. And this came out on the PS4 this year of the 2020. The track we're going to play is Booty Calls, and it was composed by Walter Mayer. Welcome back. That was my last track. We have one more coming up for you right after this break, but that was Booty Calls from Crash Bandicoot 4. It's About Time, the 2020 PS4 released game composed by Walter Mayer.
I missed the track names that would be plays on words.
Me too.
Yeah, so it's good that they're back.
Yeah, there's a lot of those in the newest game. So this game, as you and I played a little bit of it, 2 weekends ago?
Yeah,
Something like that. When
It's
it came
about
out.
2.5 weeks ago,
Yeah.
Pretty much the weekend it came out,
Yeah. Is a lot of fun. If you are a Crash Bandicoot fan and you are wondering, should I get Crash Bandicoot 4? Is it worth it? I will tell you, as a semi-Crash Bandicoot fan, yes, it's a lot of fun.
It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. There's so many references. Just even in those first couple of stages, I really enjoyed the scene that they gave you, waking up on the beach on Insanity Beach, and then there's that TV that you can run up to and spin at.
That was cool.
It switches between
the first 3 games
and this one.
Yeah,
so it's Crash 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yep.
Depending on what it is. There's a lot of nice little nods all over the game.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful for one, and for two, I don't think I talked about this when I was talking about the Insane Trilogy, but I really enjoy the Insane Trilogy. It's really fun to be able to play those games and see how they look so much better. The one thing that drives me nuts is all of the frustrations that I ever had with the original games are still there because the controls and everything is exactly the same. It's really just a facelift.
Yeah.
And that's
a major facelift.
Yeah. And that sounds like a complaint, and it kind of is a complaint. It's also, I think it's, so I would have loved it if it had been a slightly more playable, make the dual analogs a little bit more useful. I ended up having to play through the games just using the D-pad because using the dual analogs was just maddening. To get the precision that I needed, it didn't work. It would have been cool had that been better, but it wasn't. And so all the frustrations that I had when I was younger, that wasn't really big frustration. It was just this is what the game was.
Right.
Now that, things have evolved and there are better ways to do things, trying to replay it was I don't know if I can do this. And I've almost finished Warped. And that's not because I'm struggling. It's because I want to do all the secret levels before I actually complete the game.
Sure.
So it's taking me a bit because you need a lot of precision in those levels. But this game, you can totally use the dual analog stick. It feels so much better.
Yeah. I really enjoyed playing this when I came over to your place and we sat down and we played it. And I'm going to have to pick it up, but I have so many games to get through. I'm really trying to not just buy it and let it sit on a shelf, especially since I did that with the trilogy, the remake trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which I played for 5 seconds. So was oh, this is fun. I liked how smooth it flowed gameplay wise. Musically, this song sounded like a sea shanty. It had a lot of severe Irish vibes. I was really, really liking it. But at the same time, it did feel like it was a track that Mutato Musica did. So, but it wasn't.
Yeah, no, not at all. So I can get Walter out of the way here first. Walter Mayer does not have a ton that I can find. I see that it looks like he started out in 2008 doing composition for Viking Battle for Asgard, then went on to do Empire Total War in 2009, Killzone Mercenary in 2013, and then Total War Battles Kingdom in 2016, and Total War Saga Thrones of Britannia in 2018. And then obviously Crash Bandicoot 4. So not a whole lot there, and not a whole lot that I really recognize, but I appreciate how he kept the sound and feel of the original games.
When you were talking about Wrath of Cortex earlier, and you had mentioned that it was very similar to Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, I specifically was listening to the explanation that you were giving, and in my mind it was yeah, it kind of is very similar, especially with all the bad guys kind of teaming up, all the evil goofy doctors kind of teaming up with the evil mask. What is it? Not Aku Aku, but Uka Uka.
Yep.
Uka Uka. And in this game, they're not going after Crash Bandicoot necessarily. They're doing, I can't remember what they're doing.
This picks up following the events of Crash Bandicoot Warped.
Right.
I think it's been a couple months or something, but the Uka Uka and the rest of the
Or
nefarious-
20 years.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me either
Right.
if it went that meta.
Yeah.
So they're all stuck in a prison in the past, which is where they got left at the end of 3. So Uka Uka is trying to like open a hole in the fabric of space and time. He's not doing it at first, and then eventually he tries real hard. He sounds kind of constipated, and he opens a hole and then passes out. Entropy and Cortex just kind of like leave him.
Right.
And then
There's like a mask that comes out of the portal, right?
sort of, there's not a mask that comes out of the portal. There's a mask that's awoken because of the hole in space-time. That's
Right.
Lanny Loli, who is the first other mask that you meet. But so like rather than trying to get these elementals, they're trying to get these masks, and the masks help you. But there's a lot of really weird stuff that happens. I'm not going to go deep into like what happens in this game and a lot of the cool little things that they've added, or like the cool things that they do, because they're surprises, and I don't want to ruin it for Mike, and I don't want to ruin it for our listeners that are going to go play it. But like, there's some really cool stuff going on here. I mean, just between Tawna, Crash's girlfriend, even Crash and Coco, the villains, there's just this really cool stuff that happens because of these other masks.
And, I saw the trailer for Tawna because they brought Tawna back in this game. You know, she'd been gone from the series since the first entry, and I think she kind of made some appearances in some of the racing games, and of course the trilogy where she came back for the first game. But, she kind of disappeared, and, for obvious reasons, but they brought her back probably because of fan demand, I would imagine.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they bring her back is pretty BA, so
That's baller awesome for you youngins. Baller awesome.
But I have a feeling they probably brought her back partly for fan demand, but also like she's a playable character,
Right.
So
And they do good by her,
Yes.
like they're not just sticking her as a damsel in distress. She'd
exactly.
actually play as her.
She actually has agency, so
Right.
she's a good what's the word?
Strong
Role model?
female protagonist.
There you go.
Yeah, sure. Cool stuff.
Very, very.
So let's move into my last pick and our final song of the episode. This is Crash Bandicoot 2 Entranced. This came out on the Game Boy Advance in 2003. The name of the game's song that we're going to play is Prince of Persia. Now, when I say Prince, I'm saying Prince, as in Prints. Manfred Linsner is the composer. Let's take it away. thanks for joining us back on our Crash Bandicoot exploratory cruise through the history of Crash Bandicoot music. That was terrible. I'm sorry. Anyways, that track was from Crash Bandicoot 2 Entranced. That came out in the Game Boy Advance in 2003. The track is called Prince of Persia, Prints, and it's by Manfred Linsner. Very Ubisoft inspired. Prince of Persia. I can see why they would name it that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely had like that whole Middle Eastern feel.
Arabian feel, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I would say spot on.
Yeah, but it still had that Crash essence to it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the drums and all the other little things that they were doing,
Yeah.
it absolutely felt like a Crash song. But again, as with a lot of the other stuff that you've been playing, it did something different with the Crash music.
Right. Manfred Linsner, I promised you we'd talk about him, so we're going to talk about him, even though we played him a couple times.
Fine, I guess.
I suppose. He is just a machine. He's done so much awesome stuff. Imperium Romanum back in 1996. That was his first game. He later did Jimmy White's Cue Ball in 2000. Again, I'm jumping around because he's got a ton of stuff. He did the Game Boy Color version of that. Great soundtrack. Really good stuff. He also did a lot of licensed games, a lot of the Spider-Man stuff. Spider-Man Mysterio's Menace, which is a really fun Game Boy Advance game. Great soundtrack. Tomb Raider Curse of the Sword in 2001, and the original Tomb Raider on the Game Boy Color as well. Continued working with the Crash Bandicoot franchise with, again, we mentioned earlier, The Huge Adventure, then later on Entranced, and then just continued to do licensed stuff with a lot of games, Over the Hedge,
yes.
Kong, King of Atlantis, etc., etc. His final game he's credited for so far is The Tourist in 2019. Manfred Linsner is just awesome. He's one of my favorites. Iridian 2 is a great soundtrack by him. Actually, he did most of the Iridian franchise game soundtrack, so good stuff. Yeah, this game, Crash Bandicoot 2 Entranced, pretty much is a direct sequel to The Huge Adventure. The story on this one involves Crash trying to save Coco and Crunch from Dr. Entropy, who has brainwashed them with the help of Entrance. Dr. Entrance. Yeah, so that is what you're doing in that game. And of course, Aku Aku has joined you on your quest and just, continuing to play through the franchise. So wacky, good stuff. So I haven't played this one. I don't know how it plays, but I'm assuming that it's very similar, based on what I'm looking at here. It looks very similar to The Huge Adventure. So again, a game I will have to check out. Got a lot of positive reviews. It's got some fun challenges, and it's inspired by the bigger games on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, cool. All right, favorite tracks of the episode. We got a lot of good stuff in this one, so it's going to be pretty tough. But Justin, as always, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. That Crash Bandicoot Twinsanity track, Cavern Catastrophe, was really wild and really good. I think I would follow that up with Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, the Pirates and Wave Runners track that I played, and then probably your Subterranean Bandicoot track.
Yeah, it's tough because I have such nostalgia for that Crash Bandicoot map theme. I mean,
I didn't count that one because I feel like that's unfair because it's so boppy.
Yeah,
like that one was really good, but like looking at things that I enjoyed and that surprised me.
Yeah, it's tough. I really got to go with that title theme.
Fair enough.
The one that you picked. Yeah, it's just, I really, really enjoy that initial track. And it sets up the Crash sound for me, and I have nostalgia for it. So I think nostalgia's a little bit more powerful towards that one. That one wins me over. But if I had to pick a second track, I would go with my my Spiral Mouth Crash Bandicoot Twinsanity track.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
That was really cool.
Yeah, for
good
sure.
Good find.
Yeah.
What about you, the listener?
Yeah, we want to know what you think.
What did you like? That's it. Just tell us what you liked.
Yeah, just in general. Tell us. So we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Dan Lawton, Jordan and Anson Davis, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, Chris Myers, Peter Panda, The Autistic Gamer 89, Bedroth, Brad Austin, Chris Murray, Jeremy Rutz, Llama Adam, Marcus Stewart, Matt Hanola, Mixmaster, Muddle Madness, Nick Davis, and Ryan McPherson.
If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGMradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you at the end of the show and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
If you've liked what you've heard, please consider giving us a review on iTunes.
You can join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks or just talking about the podcast itself.
You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both of those sites is @XVGMRadio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
In 2 weeks, Justin, we are returning. We are back on schedule, and we're coming back for episode 63.
Yes, so 63 is going to be same song, different system. We're going to go back to something that we've done really only twice before, like in the SNES versus the Genesis episode or the C64 downports. So we're going to be playing tracks from games that were technically the same across multiple systems and then comparing the music. So you'll hear like the Atari ST versus an Amiga or like a Game Gear version versus the NES version, stuff like that. And I think it's going to be pretty cool.
All right, well, I am excited for that, and we're going to see you in 2 weeks. This is Mike
and Justin
signing off for XVGM Radio. Well, it looks like we are getting a Paul. We're getting a Paul.
How do you know who it is?
I already know it's Paul. I'm going to keep that.
You know, definitely keep that.
I instantly think Chips Ahoy.
Huh.
I just have to. Don't you?
No, I'm not a corporate shill.
No. Yo, I'm not a corporate shill. I'm a cookie shill.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm a cookie slut.
You can't say slut.
Really?
I don't think so.
Oh.
You're a cookie monster? Yeah. So say that. Say slut.
I'm a cookie monster. I thought you were going to go somewhere with like Mojo and JoJo, and I was going to be really confused.
No. I mean, we're talking about... I'm not going to spank that monkey, okay? I'm not going to do that, okay? Mojo Jojo is a lovable character. We're not talking about that franchise. This is not a Powerpuff Girls episode, okay? Justin, it's very simple. We're just talking about jacking into monkeys, okay? All right. This guy.
Wait, where'd the monkeys come from? Why are you talking about jacking into monkeys? These are bandicoots.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, my bad.